So let me see if I can move this up closer to you, Carol, while still keeping the video on. Go right ahead. Are you sitting here? No, this is more a question of when it was behind you. Go ahead if you want to.
They're helping for.
Yes. There, this will pick up the audio from here. Can I slide this over a little? There.
How about if?
Okay, welcome everyone. This is our East Bay Gray Panther speaker meeting for May 21st. And the first thing on the agenda is today's theme. Today, housing is a human right, an update on the social housing movement, the role of community land trust. And Betsy's going to share on that, right?
Thank you. Carol and I are going to tag team. We're building that skill as co-conveners of the board, Gray Panthers, and I've seen some new faces today. We're going to move fairly quickly because two of our guest speakers have to be at a meeting in San Francisco at 3. Okay. And I didn't want to lose the opportunity to hear them, but I'll introduce them in a minute. But since we have a tiny extra bit of time, I'm going to share that, housing as a human right is a huge UN goal that a whole bunch of countries signed on to in the Charter of Human Rights. And until recently, certainly we never knew how to make that real, right? So like, aspirational. I had an opportunity to go to last year to this international
2 years
social.
ago.
What?
2 years.
2 years ago, that's right. So a year ago, though, I presented on what I discovered as representing the National Council of Gray Panthers, which just gave me the title, gave me a little bigger title. But I was incredibly impressed at what I saw, which is a network of networks, a federation of affordable housing stakeholders, people across government, nonprofit, cooperative housing, and a variety, hey, Winston, and a variety of housing types that in our country is all chopped up into tiny pieces of the budget. And you never get, well, here's where we started this year and here's where we are in 5 years. It's unaccountable. And the money keeps being taken back by different administrations. So what I presented was kind of what to me was an inspiring strategy, which is how this federation of stakeholders across Europe and in like 83 countries are building the social infrastructure, if you don't mind my using that fancy word, but basically the relationships on how to secure permanently affordable housing, but not just for the very poor, because that could be taken away in a minute, like it's happening now, but actually thinking about the whole. And it starts at city levels. So I began to look for that infrastructure of public housing authorities, nonprofit land trusts here in the US, cooperative housing. I began to look for that infrastructure. Who's already got permanently affordable housing, and it's up to the residents to work together to make it work. So it's not like given to people, although some is. And I will stop there and just say there's a tremendous variety of opportunities to build that network of networks, a movement to actually turn our housing crises around. That's my optimism, so my goal today, and thanks to Carol, is to really focus in specifically on community land trusts.
Which of these are you talking about? I missed it when you started.
I'm not talking about any one person.
No, not a person, an organization.
All of them.
Exactly. It is
If
not.
you all talk at once, I won't understand anything.
So Norma, I'll be happy to take it aside, but last
Could you
year,
just give me the name?
no, because it is a movement of movements. It's multiple.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe 6 right now. There's 60 organizations or so that are leaders around the nation. And a number of people in California are very involved, but it's not top down, Norma. It's bottom up, okay? So our first, I just
Betsy?
literally, yes,
Time.
time. So, thank you.
Should we name that this is part of Affordable Housing Month?
And in fact, yes, so this is part of the East Bay Affordable Housing Month, and we should have two speakers for just a few minutes to introduce. I think it's Kevin, I can't read your name, and Lavender. Rains, if you can highlight those two. Well, I'm just asking you to give, the core things today, but thank you for East Bay Housing Organizations and Affordable Housing Month. And please, they're the hosts, they're the publicist, you could say, and organizer.
Hey, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Kevin Leichner. I am the treasurer of the East Bay Housing Organization Board of Directors. It looks like Tesla Macaro, also from our board of directors, is in attendance, as well as Lavender Briscoe from EBPO. So we are really happy to be here and to support this event. Since 1984, EBPO has mobilized the power and wisdom of our members to produce, preserve, and protect affordable housing opportunities for low-income communities throughout Alameda and Contra Costa counties. Living in the East Bay, we have all been touched by the affordable housing crisis, and some of us have even experienced housing insecurity firsthand. We are all too familiar with the problem, and we've watched it worsen over the past several years. But how often do we go to talk about solutions? So convening today is a wonderful opportunity to figure out what we can do to make the housing crisis solvable with a whole lot of people power. We know that we can build when we come together. Our collective power is real, and now's the time to tap into it. So every May, we join our partners, such as the East Bay Brave Panthers across the Bay Area, to host Affordable Housing Month, and we are the proud conveners for Alameda and Contra Costa counties. This is our opportunity to bring the community together to talk solutions, educate our communities on how affordable housing benefits us all, and ultimately build more support for the production, preservation, and protection of affordable housing. So, Lavender just dropped a link in the chat.
Excuse me, Kevin,
Yes.
could you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, happy to speak up a little bit more. Lavender just dropped into the chat a link to the Affordable Housing Month events calendar, which is also on our webpage, ebpo.org. And today you are joining hundreds of people celebrating Affordable Housing Month. We do have events going on throughout the rest of the month of May, and we really appreciate the opportunity to join you here today. Congratulations for hosting this terrific event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lavender, you want to introduce yourself? And then you'll be around, perhaps you'll both be around later to answer questions. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Betsy. Yeah. So hi everyone, I'm Lavender. I'm the membership associate at EBPO, and I've been here for almost a year now. So yeah, as Kevin mentioned, we're the conveners for Alameda and Contra Costa County, and we're happy to be in attendance today to hear more about this event. And yeah, and then also I'll put the links in the chat for our study room and impact report that we just released in case you want to learn more about EBPO and our work. Thank you.
Okay. We'll come back to them later.
Okay. Our next guests are Tesla Macaro, the Executive Director of Supportive Housing Community Land Alliance, and Amanda Phillips, Operations Manager.
And we know you're short on time,
Yeah,
but you have our complete.
Are you on the Zoom so you can share screen there? It's a full disconnect audio as well. Next to
I have to say, if,
Way out left.
oh, it's movements.
Disconnect audio. Okay. I'm moving the screen to get to.
Gotcha. That's how we greet people here. We see if you flex.
Turn on your video, people will be able to see you up close.
And Ray, there's a Zoom link.
Yeah, I know, I'm working on it.
You might not.
Can you all see me and hear me well?
In the room, we probably need you a little louder for people in the physical room.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for making time to meet today. Community Land Alliance, a community land trust based in Alameda County. We know that NCLT is going to be speaking a little bit later, but our project was initially incubated by NCLT, Northern California Land Trust, a well-established community land trust here based in Berkeley. We have over 40 years of experience. And so what I'll do is I'll run through a brief presentation, and then I have to run because we're actively involved in negotiations with the seller of a property we're trying to purchase. And my colleague Amanda will take it over. So just to start, we are an entity that was created in partnership with Alameda County Behavioral Health, with the idea that housing could be a health intervention for individuals with serious mental illness. This was the first time that a community land trust had been used in this way. Supportive housing focused on two types of housing that I'll get into, but really focused on serving serious residents with serious mental illness in the county. And so our project receives contractual oversight and operating support from Alameda County Behavioral Health and Housing and Homelessness departments. And so this idea of housing is healthcare really being brought together in our project. We do have FO on here as a partner. I'm a board member of FO and appreciate Kevin and Lavender being on the call and being affordable housing model. Everyone's support of this topic, given all of the other issues, and so POCC lastly is a community group that is organized by individuals with lived experience. Those individuals provide feedback and input as members of our advisory committee. We have open invitation to individuals who are interested in our work and supporting in that way to participate as advisory committee members as well. And so with that,
POCC stand?
oh yeah, POCC stands for People Organizing for Community Change. Yes.
A little louder, please.
Yes.
If possible.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna work on my
Volume.
volume, yeah. So People Organizing for Community Change, and they've been around,
That's not louder, by the way.
oh, okay.
We will be older.
Yeah. So individuals with lived experience who, that's not.
You just have to put more volume on
Oh.
it. Hear about-
Norma, thank
Like to know.
Okay,
But,
here it is.
yes, that's it.
Wicked problems, where we don't even have language to agree on what the problem is. We don't know what the problem is, we don't really understand the problem, and we don't have solutions. As opposed to problems where we can see what it is, name it, and we have solutions. So homelessness is kind of become a wicked problem. And I'm gonna guess you're gonna talk to us about mental health.
Yes, exactly, and you're exactly correct. Yes, question.
We know what the problem is.
Yeah,
We've been taught from the cradle to lie to ourselves about what's going on.
Norma,
you.
let her speak.
I did.
Thank you.
And thank you for your state.
He was asking
Yeah,
for
yeah.
comments.
yeah.
Great, thank you.
Question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Acceptive clarification, if you
yeah.
don't, apologies.
And so, and one of the important pieces is that it is very difficult to figure out when the problem is solved, right? How do you solve homelessness? How do you know when that's done? Is it just the lack of presence of individuals living on the streets? How do you know when mental health has been sufficiently resolved and solved? And so these concepts can sometimes make it very difficult to align with multiple interests to solve a problem. But we were designed to address a wicked problem. And so we are a community land trust that preserves and protects housing for individuals with serious mental illness. We do this in Alameda County with some focus and a framework that includes things like art therapy in terms of service provision, art therapy, biophilic design. So anytime I enter a room, I look around to see how many plants are available, how much natural light is available. And we realize as an organization that these elements help with recovery for individuals with serious mental illness and are a part of how we define quality as an organization. And our work as a community land trust serves individuals with incomes below 30% of the area median income. So a little bit deeper affordability than some other land trusts, but we have been working in partnership with many organizations to acquire our first couple of properties, which I'll get into. And so our mission as an organization, again, is to serve individuals with serious mental illness in Alameda County. We do this by creating nurturing, high quality, supportive living environments. We steward the land as owner of the improvements or the building, working with qualified service partners who provide services to residents on site. And we were, really, our focus as an organization is individuals with serious mental illness. At the same time, there is a link between serious mental illness and the unhoused in Alameda County. One is not necessarily cause the other, but it often does in our county. And so we've looked at the unhoused population in Alameda County. There's about 10,000 unhoused, given the last point in time count. About 35% of that 10,000 have a serious mental illness, and about 80% of this amount are unsheltered. And so it is a huge need within our county. We know that as an organization, there's a lot of there's a huge need, and so we were designed to address that need. We wanted to get a little bit specific related to the data as it exists across the county. We were designed to create two types of housing. One, a licensed board and care model. So if you're familiar with licensed board and cares, these are homes that provide 24-hour care and support to individuals who need assistance with activities of daily living, like medication management, grooming, housekeeping services. So very intensive services, 24-hour care. And the county saw these facilities closing across the county. We dug into these numbers and we saw that about 175 facilities have closed over the last 5 years, accounting for about 3,300 beds lost over the last 5 years. So when we put a dollar amount to that at about $150,000 per bed, we determined that there's about $450 million in lost value over the last 5 years. So, our work now in terms of our acquisition strategy, where do we acquire? It's where those bed losses are. And we've seen plenty of losses of facilities in Oakland and then the South County and Hayward. So we're focusing on those areas of the county. Just to go a little bit deeper into the challenge, it's just this piece that housing really is more than just a place to stay. It really is healthcare in many ways. The focus now on social determinants of health, which is the idea that your health outcomes are derived from more than just going to the doctor, that your health outcomes are derived from the community that you have. And it's derived from the interpersonal connections you have with others. And it's derived from systematic oppression on certain groups. There's a whole number of things that impact our health. And so, from a housing perspective, we are very much interested in looking at neighborhood context before we acquire. We're very much concerned with the community building aspects of resident councils at each of our homes, and ensuring that residents have access to a safe environment, but also safe peers and support system to build the kind of trust needed to improve their social determinants of health. And so the need in Alameda County, per the Home Together 2026 plan, which is an Alameda County based planning document, that indicates that about 700 new permanent supportive housing units are needed annually. And so our innovation is really designed to ensure that we address what we consider an invisible pipeline to homelessness, the closure of these licensed facilities, and also working with parents of adult children with serious mental illness to provide opportunities for them to co-invest, meeting their needs, to ensure that if anything were ever to happen to them, that their adult children would have a safe and secure community to participate in. And so our strategy is multi-pronged. Because it is a wicked problem, we are attacking the issue with many different strategies. Really important to us is ensuring that the neighborhood has community assets. So parks and public spaces, transit, a property that we'll show you in a little bit is located near the West Oakland BART station, which provides access to the university. Many of the residents will be taking classes at Laney College, which is just one BART stop away. There's a community garden 1 block away. There's a small farm in the neighborhood. And so we're really focused on site selection as an important component. Most of our projects are really focused on rehab or light rehab or no rehab. That really is to address some of the sustainability, environmental sustainability concerns of new construction projects, even though new construction is an important part of the affordable housing work as well, and much needed. Our project as a community land trust focus on preservation projects, acquiring existing property. I'm quickly going through a few slides before I pass it over to my colleague. Biophilic design, I know we talked about plants and public spaces. That's an important piece of our work, just to ensure that all of our both internal and the internal of the home and also externally, there are a number of natural elements. This is just a visual of the 2 models that I discussed a little bit earlier.
Tim, by a little, you off for a
sorry.
second?
Yeah.
No, it's loose. Okay, I think we're back on.
Okay, great, thank you. And so this is just a visual of the 2 models for clarity, just so that you understand. We are designed to create 2 types of housing: the licensed boarding cares for higher needs populations, and then a family partnership for those families looking to co-invest with others. And so this is a photo of our first acquisition in Oakland. It's a 24-bed licensed boarding care facility, serving individuals with the transition age youth population, so individuals 18 to 21. It's 3 buildings, about 6,400 square feet. It was initially designed to serve individuals in the co-living community. So it was, the co-living community has had some challenges in COVID, and some operators closed down. And so for us, we have this idea of democratizing beauty, democratizing opportunity. And we believe that if it's good enough for individuals who are mostly tech workers, socially and economically mobile individuals, it was good enough for our residents who often don't have access to beautiful spaces. And so these are some photos of both internal and external. You can see community space on the top right, outdoors. That's flanked by a sky bridge that connects the 3 buildings. And you can see the kitchen area and one of the bedrooms. But in terms of our work, addressing one of the core needs, which is increasing quality of these facilities that often have significant deferred maintenance, a lot of rehab needed that hasn't been done at a lot of these facilities, and we wanted to create kind of a best-in-class example of what a licensed boarding care could be. And then secondly, I will get into our family partnership model briefly, but I do have to hop off in 1 minute and pass it over to my colleague Amanda. But you know, our process is really focused on acquisition rehab, and so we are acquiring properties that exist. We're designing and renovating them. Most of the time, they don't have substantial rehab. So these are very unique opportunities. There are not a lot of properties that exist with this profile, but this is our existing strategy. Families, so parents of adult children with serious mental illness, those parents receive a lifetime lease from our organization, which provides their adult children lifetime access to the units. And the families pay a one-time entrance fee similar to the assisted living community. At the moment, because of that initial entrance fee, it does require that families have some assets reserved, set aside for this.
Sorry.
At the moment,
Oh.
between $100,000 and $150,000, but yes. But we're working to reduce that in conversation with philanthropy and hope to do more of that. So I see it as 2 o'clock right now. And I do have to run to another conversation, but I know my colleague Amanda will be able to take it from here. But I wanted to thank everyone for the time.
Another speaker that needs to speak at 2 o'clock, so Amanda will come back to the questions after.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Our next speaker is Hasten.
Oh, sorry. I thought Amanda was gonna finish. I need about 10 minutes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, excellent.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
In a minute, feel free to turn on your camera too, for people to see you.
Thanks, Eslam. So yes, we were talking about how.
I just larger, I personally get this.
Thank you, sir.
That helps, yeah.
There.
Yeah, so SHCLA was designed for 2 types of models of housing. We talked about the licensed boarding cares and the family partnership model. Sure. And now I just want to go into the impact of those 2 models a little bit. You know, one of the things that we try to talk about is while we care a lot about the quality of housing that we provide in order to improve resident outcomes for folks with serious mental illness, we also know that we have to talk to government and philanthropy about money and statistics and what we're doing cost savings. So some of the strategies that we use to talk to government and philanthropy is something about how much money we're saving downstream when you put investment into housing upstream or from the beginning. And so one of the things that we talk about is, you know, if we are preventing individuals with serious mental illness to be on the streets, to be potentially picked up and be interacting with the justice system, to be interacting with the healthcare system, we're saving, for example, the healthcare system much money every day. The administrative cost is about $1,000 a day versus if you're putting those investments into housing in the beginning. You know, we are also looking at behavioral health facilities moving into that aspect of starting skilled nursing facilities. And so, yeah, the impact of permanent supportive housing We know with permanent supportive housing, it's one of the most effective ways to ensure stable housing. We've seen statistics and reports that talk about 97% of residents remain housed when there aren't stipulations put upon the housing. Some of the measures of recovery that we use is milestones of recovery skills moors. We're working with the University of Berkeley, Dr. Charisma AC to do an evaluation of our program to be able to get the baseline population statistics of this particular population group to see where they are when they start with in one of our facilities, and then to make sure that the programming and the supportive services that we are providing are actually showing effective measures of recovery. And so we'll be doing a 1-year evaluation study to prove that the data-driven approaches that we're using our therapy, of using biophilic design, of using the normative therapies, CBT and EMDR, but also non-normative therapies of using culturally competent alternative ways of supportive services like art therapy and podcasting.
It's an NMR.
Yeah.
I know it's CBD, it's
Yeah.
a form of CBD pop.
Yeah, cognitive-based therapies,
Oh,
and then
I don't.
cognitive-based therapies, and I am forgetting the yeah, I'll
Yeah.
come back to it. I'm sorry. Some other statistics that we see is a 68% decrease in with the police, 60 to 95% reduction in jail days, 72% reduction in detox center uses, and less interactions with ER visits, emergency room visits. Yeah, and that's it. But yeah, happy to take some questions about the community land trust, about supportive services, so.
Carol will call on to make sure we get both online and Carol.
So just one quick definition. Use the term serious mental illness. How do you define serious, for the purpose of this discussion, in this context, how do you define serious mental illness?
Yeah, so with the behavioral health department of Alameda County and so some examples are general anxiety disorder, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. So in the DSM 5 research, we use the term serious mental illness and whatever diagnoses fall under that.
So you guys are basing your definition of serious mental illness, quote unquote, on diagnostics, the diagnostics of something.
Are we asking questions or is this later on? Put your hand up, Norma.
Oh, okay.
If you have a question,
And can we switch so we can see hands up?
I'm looking for any hands online. I think I'm hearing one. Arlene actually online. Carol, do you want to call on here or online next?
Okay.
I'll just go into work.
What I just told Tessa is that Fidel Castro of Cuba is said to have said last night 500,000 people, children slept on the streets. None of them was Cuban. We have the answers. We have to lie to ourselves from the cradle. They demand it immediately. You are not to know what's going on, but you know what's going on. In Soviet Union, hold on, okay, don't do what they did to me yesterday on Massachusetts peace, whatever. I have a statement, people will have responses. In Soviet Union was the same thing, they housed everybody. Because it can be done, we can take care of each other.
You're still
So
sharing
don't miss
screen.
the point. All of these are compromises with the horror. Capitalism causes crime. If you have any comments, please make them. Those will come in the form of a response to a question I didn't have to ask because I've been doing this for 75 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Norma.
Thanks, Carol.
You don't see any questions in the
I see Arlene.
Arlene?
Let me be respectful. Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello, Arlene.
This has been really, really interesting. One of the things that, I
Sorry.
think-
Yeah. 1 second. We'll make sure we can see everybody. Okay. Go ahead, Harlan.
my first question, to Miss Amanda Phillip would be the, I guess intake of someone who is living in a boarding care. Is this an indefinite thing, or is there a population that ultimately might move out of this particular facility? And if so, can you tell me what the rate of that might be? Because sometimes people are fluid. They just hit a situation and they go through what they're going through, and then they might need to leave. So I was just curious if you could kind of answer that question. That's the first part.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that question. I just want to quickly say I'm actually the operations manager at SHCLA. We have a director of programs. I'm going to do my best to answer all of those questions. For the license and board and care model, we are the ones who own the land and oftentimes the improvement the building, but we work with operators who provide the supportive services or are the administrators of the licensed board and care. For example, for the union, we'll be working with Belton Institute. They have their process of doing intakes because we're working with Alameda County Behavioral Health and Alameda County Social Services agencies. The referrals are primarily coming from those two agencies into our licensed boarding care. In licensed boarding cares in general, I do believe there is a subset of the population of individuals with mental illness who are improving their outcomes over time and are transitioning from licensed boarding cares to other types of housing. I want to say, don't quote me on this, it's about 30% who probably transition from a licensed boarding care to a different form of housing. But yes, there are folks who will be able over time to have their diagnoses improve and look for alternate forms of permanent housing.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the first part. Can I ask the second part?
Quickly.
I wanted to know if in fact this Community Land Alliance sort of like trust boarding care is are you partnering with the continuum of care in Alameda County?
The homeless system.
Yeah, so
Coordinated entry system? Yeah.
yeah, so for example, for the union, the population is either coming out of the foster care system or have been impacted by the justice system in some ways. And so we're also going to be talking with Alameda County like probation and talk about the referral system through that programming. But yes, we are connected to continuum of care.
I'd love to talk to you further, but I'm going to move on since Carol is telling me to hurry up. Okay, bye-bye.
Around.
And I'll just quickly
Exactly.
say that we are, one of the things that we talk a lot about is that we're advocating for licensed boarding cares to have more of an official designation within the continuum of care. I think that's why we talk about it being like an invisible sort of pipeline to homelessness, because different agencies at different levels of government see this as housing, some sees it more behavioral health, and we're constantly trying to make sure we're putting a spotlight on licensed boarding cares to have more official kind of designations in the process. But yeah.
Thank you so much for that. All right, Carol.
Okay, we have the executive.
later, right?
Hold your questions, we'll come back to questions. We have, Abubakar Asen Ndai, the Executive Director of Northern California Land Trust. Offices in Berkeley.
Hi, folks. And I'm gonna share my screen if you don't mind.
Oh,
That works. Okay. And go into slideshow,
mm,
and hopefully that works. All right, can everybody see my screen?
beautiful.
Perfect, awesome, great. Thank you so much for having me, and apologize for the delay. My name is Asen Ndiaye. I'm the Executive Director of the Northern California Land Trust. I'm going to go into a little bit of what we do as an organization and kind of go into the background and history of community land trust and community ownership or co-ownership models. So again, what we do, go into a little bit of our mission, our values, go into Community Land Trust 101 and talk about some of the things that we focus on as an organization. And then I'll go ahead and stop and talk about and have time for questions. So we're the oldest land trust in the state of California. We were founded in 1973. We're proudly 52 years young at this point. We currently have properties in 4 counties and 6 cities throughout the Bay Area. And our focus is on permanently preserving affordable housing in the Bay Area. We have a continuum of different types of properties, everything from single family homes to multifamily properties and everything in between. So our core values are racial justice. We're community driven. We really focus on housing justice, and probably the number one thing and what we really want to, what we associate with community ownership is self-determination and the ability of people to be able to have a say over the conditions and over the conditions of the places in which they live. This is kind of some general data or numbers about sort of the populations that we serve. We do have a really deep concentration in South Berkeley and North Oakland, which were formerly disinvested and redline communities. We served in the past 4 years nearly 1,000 households, and 90% of our residents identify as lower income. So what is a community land trust? For folks who may not be familiar with the term, what I always like to do is say it's essentially exactly what it says, and I'm just going to go word by word. So community means that it's really owned by the folks who are within the trust. So all the folks who are part of the organization, that's who owns the land and the housing, and folks get to have some decision making about it. Land is the mechanism in which we are able to preserve that affordability through successive ownerships over the long term. And we use something called the ground lease model. And basically what that means is the land trust owns the land, and it leases that land to the improvement, which is usually a house, but I'll talk a little bit more about the different types of models that you can really have on top of those homes. And because it leases it to the improvement, when the person who owns the improvement sells the property, they can enforce that lease to the next person, which allows for the next owner of the property to be able to have the opportunity to have an affordable home or an affordable business or an affordable space. And I'm going to go into a little bit more the different models that are possible here. But that's just kind of the idea of what the community land trust is, which is you own the land, you lease it to the improvement. So what does that look like? So we, the Northern California Land Trust, do own, we do have a different model than a lot of land trusts, and we do own a lot of different types of properties. So we own single family homes, we own cooperative homes, we own commercial spaces, and we own open spaces as well. And that is kind of what is really great about the community land trust model, is that it's really flexible. The main sort of core value is, are you leveraging land to meet community needs? So really, are you thinking about how you're using the wealth that is built up through ownership of land in a way that allows you to meet the needs of your community, whatever those needs may be? And so the different models that can be built upon that land are obviously a single family home, limited equity co-op. And a limited equity co-op is essentially when folks buy a share of a property, and they are essentially part of a co-op board, and they make decisions about what happens as part of being part of this overall corporation that owns the building. And that's why we call it a limited equity co-op, because as part of the bylaws of that co-op is that there's only so much you can actually make when you sell your shares on the property, so that you make sure that the property itself can remain affordable over the long term. The next model is a condominium, in which you don't own a share, but you legally own your own unit inside of a building. And you have all of the home ownership rights within the walls, but you do have shared ownership for everything outside your walls. And then finally, a multifamily rental. The way that we always think about it is that somewhat different from a lot of other affordable housing models, or from the private market, is that even if you are in a rental inside of a community land trust, you are part of decision making. You're going to monthly meetings or bi-monthly meetings to make decisions about the property where you live, and you're allowed to run for the board of the land trust, because all land trusts have to have at least 1/3 of the representatives on the board be residents of the property. What are some other things that you can do with a community land trust? So an example is having a community garden or urban agriculture. Small businesses, we currently speaking to you from our commercial space here, where we rent out to nonprofit businesses usually. You could have just open space. We have a property that is just open space here in Berkeley. And then finally, open spaces, meeting spaces, and community spaces for folks. And you can really see that for land trusts that are especially based in non-urban areas. So I've kind of gone over the basics of a community land trust, but one thing I want to say is that this is a proven model that has a very, very low foreclosure rate, and that is spread out across the country. So this is not only a Bay Area model or a California model, but it's replicable and scalable throughout the United States. I've talked a little bit about sort of the real benefits, but one of the big things that we do love to emphasize is that we like to think about these assets as being generational assets and community assets. So when we take a home off the speculative market, what we are giving to a family, or what a family is getting, is the ability to remain where they remain in that home forever, but also to pass it on to their children and their children's children. But even if they decide to move or to sell the property, they're able to take some equity with them. But at the same time, that home stays affordable for the next family in that community. So now it becomes a community anchor and a community asset. Back to NCLT. So just want to really quickly go over some of the things that we do as an organization. We're part of a lot of advocacy efforts. We provide housing. We do a lot of consulting and training. As Teslim talked about, we do a little bit of incubation, where we try to help other community ownership projects grow and thrive as well. Some of the record about our advocacy. I did want to highlight really quickly the growth of community land trusts throughout the state of California. There are now up to 50 CLTs throughout the state, 27 established and 23 are emerging. And this is a chart from 2024, and I guarantee you that chart is out of date at this point. Some of the work that we've done historically around advocacy, some of the rehabilitation and development work that we've done, some of the new construction that we're currently contemplating, and this is going to be a limited equity co-op in South Berkeley at the site of our headquarters that we're currently raising money for. And I'm just going to skip over here to our incubation work, which is all of the community ownership projects that we've worked with, either historically or that we're currently working with. Currently, we're working with the Vallejo Community Land Trust in Solano County, as well as the Artist Space Trust, which is the nation's first artist-focused land trust. And it really comes out of the disaster of the Ghost Ship fire in 2016. And that's it. That's my contact information. I'm sure we can find a way to make sure that you folks get access to that information. And then I only have a couple of minutes for questions because I have to rush to San Francisco and try to beat the Bay Bridge traffic.
Oh, you're driving. Good luck. Yeah. You're right next to the fire.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Where's the Wilsey project?
Carol will call on people.
Okay, Betsy has a question.
Yeah, first, thank you so much. I helped in a tiny way to create Addison Court Housing Cooperative by
Oh.
introducing them to NCLT, which I just met, this is like 25 years ago.
Well, that's awesome. That's really great. Well,
I feel very up close and personal. So do you want to say a little bit more about what Woolsey Gardens could be here in Berkeley? Because it's the first
sure, absolutely.
time. And second, when you go, unless Isaac is here, if there's a question someone asks that I can answer, may I respectfully answer, or should we schedule?
No, go for it. Absolutely. No, absolutely. Go for it.
Woolsey Gardens, what does it mean here in Berkeley? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Woolsey Gardens is essentially an attempt to do two things. First is really try to take advantage of a lot of legislation that has been passed over the last 5 years that really emphasizes dense infill development near high capacity transit. We're about one fifth of a mile away from, we're basically 2 blocks away from the Ashby BART station, where there is going to be a lot of development as well. And we're trying to think about what are some really, really great, energy efficient, low car usage ways to do development in South Berkeley. And so that's one kind of goal that we have. The other big goal that we have is that the city of Berkeley passed a preference policy that went into effect last year that allowed for folks who had been displaced by the construction of BART back in the 1970s to be able to have the opportunity to return to this neighborhood or this area, either themselves or, of course, their descendants. What we know is that the redevelopment caused a significant amount of displacement of particularly Black households in South Berkeley. And this would allow for folks who had been displaced to be able to have a preference when this building was built. And so it would allow for a couple of different outcomes. There is also one more thing that we thought about when we were thinking about the development of this process, was that a lot of folks who live in South Berkeley are living in homes that they can either no longer manage on their own, or are being speculators are really targeting with lowball offers and offers to pay off second mortgages and so on and so on. And so there is really kind of a need for a place for folks to go if they decide to sell family homes, or even decide to preserve their family homes. They want to keep it either through a land trust model or through a family trust. Having a place to live that isn't as hard to maintain or is not as expensive to maintain. And so we thought about what are some of the limits that we can actually build on here at this site at Woolsey and Shattuck. And we're able to come up with a project that had 65 units, a cooperative model, and for a number of those units, about 13 of those units. And for the rest of the units, the other 39 units, it would be a condo model, small, and they would all be sold affordably. Our goal prices were between $300,000 and $400,000 per unit, and we were hoping to partner that with down payment assistance to make it more accessible for folks as well. It would be 6 stories with ground floor retail, and all of our current tenants would be able to return to the space as well. Our timeline for it is still kind of flexible because we're still fundraising for it. We're really proud of this project. We've gotten a lot of support from the state and from state agencies because of how energy forward the project is and how much it fits into sort of all of these multiple goals that the state was thinking when it was passing a lot of legislation a few years ago.
Do we have any questions online?
Let's see, any online questions? I'm looking in chat. Ginny says NCLT is in good hands. Best presentation yet, Jason.
No, thank you. I appreciate it, Jenny. Really appreciate it.
I'm sorry. Oh.
And I'm not seeing any other raised hands online.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and fight traffic. So, thank you.
It looks like 32 minutes to downtown is your current prediction.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye.
She's calling on me.
Okay.
Hi, thank you very much for all that.
He may be off.
Me.
I'm letting you know that he's leaving the call.
He's leaving the call.
He has to leave. He's left.
My question.
No, but we have other people, if it's community land trust or NCLT questions.
So, who gets paid by the land that gets rented on a 99-year community trust land? You build a place on it and you rent it at some supposedly affordable housing price. But who gets paid by that process for the use of the land?
Shakina is online, so she could.
Betsy was speaking to me and
Yeah,
Our third speaker may speak to this. Her name is Gina.
Yes.
Samaya Thompson.
Samaya Thomas.
Thompson.
And
Thomas.
Thomas.
did somebody answer me or not?
Well, she is an expert on that topic.
I'm going to try. Hi, can everybody see me and hear me okay?
You're bright and loud.
Okay, so I didn't fully hear the question, but I think I got it. So again, my name is Shakina Samaya Thomas. If you see the picture behind me, you'll see my husband, Christopher. We are co-owners or homeowners with the Oakland Community Land Trust. So we are square dab in the traditional, right out of the civil rights movement, CLT, single family home ownership model, and specifically related to the ground lease. So the way this particular version of the model works, what was originally designed, and because CLTs are by definition community driven and community led and community controlled, they do look different in each of their communities. Hold on, I'm trying to answer the question.
She'll get there.
I'm trying to answer the question.
She will
Please
get
don't-
there, but please let her finish. Yeah.
So
Thank you.
in our case, we are homeowners. We have a mortgage. It is not a rental. We have a mortgage on the structure, our house. The land trust owns the land. That allows us to have an affordable mortgage. We lease essentially in a ground lease. We pay a very small monthly administrative fee. We lease the land for a 99-year renewable lease that we can pass this on to our heirs. We can sell it back directly to the land trust with the equity that we have built over time. We could sell it directly to another income qualified person who would then become the next homeowner of this structure and be in partnership with the land trust, maintaining the permanent affordability. The CLT key is permanent affordability. As for rentals, specifically to the question of rentals, that's going to look a little different in each CLT based on the needs of the community and the structures that the bylaws, the board of the CLT has developed. In my case, I am a resident board member. The bylaws were created before the organization purchased and rehabbed and resold these facilities. So we already have that in place. And then as a board, we look at things over time to see what might need to be adjusted. I think the question was in part about where does that money go to? Well, if it's, for example, a single family home that is occupied by renters instead of homeowners, and we do have some of those in the Oakland CLT portfolio now for a variety of reasons, they are paying an affordable rent that is set based on a formula that is related to the local average median income and uh, the value of the structure, not the land, because the land essentially has zero value because it's owned by the organization. So and then that rent is going to go towards back to the organization directly to pay for the costs of owning both the land and the structure. In our case as homeowners, we have all of the rights, all of the privileges, and all of the responsibilities of being a homeowner. So, for example, we pay our own taxes, we take care of our own maintenance, we do our own landscaping. If we do capital improvements to the house, if it significantly alters the structure in some way, we would want to be in conversation with the land trust about what that might look like. But generally, we're free to do whatever we want as long as we don't harm the land or the structure in any way. And we will get some of that back in an equity and capital improvements formula minus any deferred maintenance, at which point we decide to leave the home if we ever do. So I think that is a long answer to the question. I hope that I've addressed it and given a little more insight into some version of the CLT. No, not the banks. No.
Share the rent payment with a body and yourselves.
Sorry?
You share the rent payment with with the body of organized people using it.
No,
And
we don't pay rent. We don't pay rent. We have a mortgage. We pay our lender our mortgage every month. We
and
pay,
there's nothing that goes to a lessee, a leaser,
no, we also, so we have the mortgage and we pay our mortgage to the bank. We pay our mortgage. We also have a very small lease for the ground lease to be on the land. It's not rent, it's a lease. We pay that directly to the organization, in our case, Oak CLT. Ginny made a comment / question. No, that's not exactly right. The bank doesn't loan money to homeowners. The bank doesn't loan the money to Oakland CLT to make the purchase. That's a whole different conversation. The bank loaned us the money to buy the structure and we pay them back.
Got it. Thank you.
There was more of a presentation that she, was gonna make. She is one of our featured guests.
So is there
time for her to continue her presentation? Yes.
Yeah, if there's more you wanted to present directly, Shakina, or
I don't have a slideshow. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to speak a little bit more about how Oak CLT functions. I will say that ASIN told you everything that I could possibly say and more about the general function of a CLT and different ways that it might look. I can say that the Oakland Community Land Trust in the last 5 or 6 years has acquired a variety of properties. And so now we also have some open space. We have multi-unit rentals. We have at least one of those we are in the process of helping the occupants convert to a limited equity limited equity housing cooperative. They're in the process of that. We do not have any condo structures in our system, and nor do I think we want any. And our goal is ultimately to help anybody who is in a rental situation in our portfolio to eventually transition to some sort of home ownership, whether it's through an LEHC model or a like single family home ownership like we are in. We are really not in the business of being landlords long term. That was not how Oakland CLT was founded, nor is it the long term goal. We have become almost by default the landlords for some properties, because one of the things that most CLTs share in common as a value is to prevent displacement. And a number of different units and facilities came to us seeking guidance and help, and we worked with them to try and prevent displacement. But we are working to try, it may be a very long-term process, to help them transition out of a rental model and towards a ownership model. And because of that, I do want to point out that Teslam's organization, and maybe some of what NCLT is doing as well, they may serve a population that has a lower incomes overall. Generally, you're looking for a land trust, you're looking at anywhere between 30 and 80% of the local average median income, the AMI. That's all considered below market affordability. It also depends again on the community. I can tell you that in Sonoma County, for example, they have a CLT where their model, they will sell to homeowners at 120% of the AMI, and it's still considered below market affordable because the AMI is so high. So it, again, community controlled, community driven, community led. I did want to point out something that Asen said. I really want to emphasize. If a CLT is calling itself a community land trust, if they're calling themselves that, but they don't have at least 1/3 of their board as vested members in the community in one form or another, they're not really a CLT, because it is by definition community led and community controlled. So that's a really important thing to understand, that if it's an organization that's being led and directed, but the community itself isn't involved in that direction, then that is something to address.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Are there other questions that people have related to the CLT model?
I'm not seeing any online.
In the room?
Go ahead.
Uh,
Shakina, you and I met at an online event, or did we meet in person? Anyway, you are now a
Online.
member of the California Community Land Trust Action Board, which I think is entirely made up of residents, community members. But we'll talk a little more about that, because that's where Norma's been asking about what's the organization, and I'm saying this movement of social housing is a movement of movements. It's a long-term federation of different types of organizations that make up what we call an ecosystem of organizations, right? So can you say a little bit, I know you just joined, but tell us a little bit how the California Community Land Trust Network is organized, to what extent are residents like you actually taking on leadership yet? And then I'll follow. But how do you see the landscape that your SCLT and this network, statewide network that you're in?
Yeah, I'll try to unpack that a little bit. So the California Community Land Trust is a membership-based organization that is, the intention is to help incubate and support emerging and active community land trusts across the state. That it is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It has a board of directors, of which I think 1/3 of it are made up of residents in various CLTs across the state. It provides a variety of support services for its members, and and the membership is growing. I am a volunteer within that organization. Inside of the organization, there is a separate, what they call 501c4 action board, whose primary purpose is to allow for the advocacy and endorsement of legislative policies and elected officials, candidates. That's what a C4 can do that a C3 cannot do. A C3, any nonprofit within limits has the legal right to advocate for legislative priorities as long as they follow certain rules. What they can never do is endorse candidates, but a C4 can. And a C4 has a higher funding restriction around what kinds of legislative advocacy work it does. In January, I became a volunteer member of the C4 board of the California CLT network. I have been involved with the network pretty directly for the past couple of years, but we've been around. The network has been around since, I want to say they were founded in 2018, maybe somewhere in there, as a response to a loss of a national national CLT network of organizations that merged with other social housing and affordable housing organizations. So the focus of the California CLT network as a whole is to facilitate, expand, and support the CLT movement. I would be careful to use the word federation, Betsy, because federation implies a
We're not there yet.
group. Yeah, well, and it never will be.
Europe, yeah.
It never will be. It never will be, because there's just too many differences in how a CLT will look to be like one group. But the CLT network, the state CLT network, is a dedicated organization that provides support in a variety of ways to the development of the of the community land trust model across the state.
Winston. Yes, I'd like to know, do any of your models make it possible for a person with only income from Social Security, let's say $2,000 a month, for them to obtain any type of housing or your benefits that you just talked about?
I can't hear the question.
The question is anybody who is only on Social Security, can you hear me now?
A little better, yeah.
Okay, that allows a person only income from Social Security, say it's $2,000 a month. Do any of your things that you outlined allow somebody access to only income from Social Security at that low level?
Can somebody repeat the question a little closer?
I'll repeat it next to the microphone.
But I can also say I can answer that question.
Yeah, well,
Very correct.
so yeah, if somebody's just on a limited income of Social Security, how could they afford housing in this model?
$2,000 a month.
It depends on it depends on the specific community land trust and what kind of population they are serving, because everyone is different, right? So for example, in Teslam's organization, they would probably have some residents who are only on Social Security. They're serving people with a 30% or lower income of AMI. Northern California Land Trust might as well. I'm fairly sure that some of our residents within the Oakland Community Land Trust who are in a rental situation might also fall into that category. But we are not a public housing or housing authority agency of subsidized housing where you apply and your income might qualify you to have a below market unit. It's not that kind of a model, not in the CLT system. That doesn't mean there might not be a CLT that creates housing to support that model, because again, it's community driven, community controlled, community led. So it might be there, but there's no centralized office somewhere where you're going to go down and say, hey, I want to apply with my Social Security income to be in this housing unit, because that doesn't exist.
I think Betsy might share just the numbers of what she paid when she lived in a community land trust co-op in a home. I mean,
of the properties that the residents were able to buy, thanks to the help of this Northern California Land Trust. There's a second land trust in Berkeley that also brings as low as it can the cost of the monthly carrying charges, right? But just on, so the place where I live has 2 openings. Every year or 2, they have an opening, and you apply to become a member of the co-op. And when I lived there, it was $500 a month. Now they have 2 different levels because the incomes can be so gap. There's such a big income gap, but you have to be, you know, if you're accepted as a member, then your rent is based somewhat on your income. So there's, I believe, there's a $750 rent level. This is just covering the cost of operating and maintaining the 10 garden apartments, right? You own the inside, but you're part of a 10 households, maybe 15 people who decide what the carrying charges are going to be. But at the end of the day, it's based on what does it cost to run, to operate and maintain everybody's homes. Are you saying the level is more like $1,100 a month? I actually
and what was
so sure. If you go look at the website, nclt.org website, there'll be a list of different community of homes and apartment buildings or apartments that are under that are supported by that land trust, not supported financially, except to originally buy the place, help you buy it, but then the residents are paying off the mortgage on that place. It's in West Berkeley.
Betsy, how much was your share, your purchases?
$2,000 by a share. That is now, that's 23 years later, it's more like 5,000 to buy a share. That's your contribution to the equity of the whole property. And then I paid 500. I think it went up to about 500 a month in carrying charges. Now, you know, 23 years later, and all sorts of expenses.
Yeah.
It's a lot more. So, but I will say to you that there are other places that it's possible. But the hard thing is, it's like in the maybe there's 3 that open every year in different communities. But you can find places that might work for that, you know, and then you can apply it if you decide you like the people and the place. And the openings, there's no central portal for all the openings in land trusts, the way there is for affordable housing. I'm giving you too much information. So, but maybe she's shaking her head, because maybe there is a place to find out. No, okay. Well, it's the next step.
No, because Betsy, it's not a centralized system, right?
Exactly, but.
Right,
even
each
affordable
community
housing-
land trust, each community land trust is its own organization, its own nonprofit, and it's supporting the community need based on what that community need is.
So, Addison Court Housing Cooperative, I'm sorry, I'm loading on you.
Yeah.
They have their own website where they post when they have an opening and are inviting applicants. So does Northern California Land Trust. They will.
Like we have our own website. If we have a home, and we do have a home actually, that we're in the process of selling right now. If we have, let's say one of our homeowners notifies the land trust this week that and I know somebody who might do this soon, he wants to sell his home. He's ready to sell it back to the land trust or sell it to another income qualified buyer because he's ready to move on to what's next in his life. He would notify the organization. Then the organization goes through a process around what that home needs to be to have any kind of deferred maintenance taken care of, to get it ready to be sold. And once it is, then we would put on our website, this home is available for sale. Then we go through a selection criteria process, right? So if there is an opening like that, that would be on there. Each organization is going to have some version of their own system and what that looks like. But it's not going to be like when you see a housing authority, for example, open up wait lists, a generalized, hey, everybody, a wait list is opening up, apply here. It's generally not that kind of centralized system.
There was another question from Marlene. Online.
Or maybe just was it her comments in chat?
So Arlene was recently at I believe Arlene, you were at a national gathering in Southern California, of 60 or more leaders of organizations from tenant rights, tenant unions, land trusts, legal firm, public interest law firms that are committed to housing as a human right as the goal, even though they do different things. Some are organizing tenants like ACE is here in Oakland, and some of the land trusts were there. And could you say a little bit about it? And that it doesn't have a name, but it doesn't go, it is a number of group players who make up the ecosystem all across the country, but they're all local as well. Are you still here?
Arlene's on, I don't see.
Oh, no, she's here.
No, I'm here.
She's here.
I'm here. I wanted to ask you a question about what you were talking about earlier, but I'm going to speak to what you want to talk to. I'm going to stay on point. I went to, I was invited by ACE. Well, actually, I think it's Housing California Housing now. I don't know. There are various acronyms.
Yeah.
They got everybody's a housing something. And so, and so
Right.
it was really interesting to go to this event because of what is the legislation that was passed here in California? Is it SB 555? The social housing?
I don't.
Yes.
Yes.
That group.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so it was a convening of organizations from public housing. There was discussion about public housing, which was the original social housing, for lack of a better way to say it, here in North America, and community land trusts from across the country, which there were some really interesting ideas that came out of the convening and sort of doing like sort of breakout rooms on various subject matter. One of the interesting things were the various states, the various things that they're doing to generate revenue in order to participate and to purchase, because we have number 47 in office right now, and number 47, all I could do is take a breath. Number 47 in office, he's not really about our class of people. He's for the 1%. And so with that being said, you have to come up with you have to come up with new and innovative ways in order to not only organize, but also to purchase the properties. Because if you're not getting where you're going to get the funding from to do, to execute the ideas. And so I think it was in Seattle. Seattle actually passed a piece of legislation to tax the wealthy, a certain portion of the wealthy, in order to generate money to go into the social housing model. So that was like really interesting. Various, I think it's in like Philadelphia. They're passing legislation not only for tenant protections, because especially in a lot of states, not only the Section 8, but housing choice value, there's no protections. And so there was conversations about tenant protection ordinances, which there's not a lot of, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of tenants, but after a certain period of time, what is it called? Affordability perpetuity. I think it's like 55 years here in the state of California, right?
99.
90,
For,
well,
yeah, for community land trust, it's 99.
well, for
For
community
others,
land trust, but for other buildings with the affordability perpetuity, in order
Yeah.
to not get it sold to private developers, how can we begin to look at these properties prior to them reaching that point and finding ways to purchase it? So it's conversations about not only developing this new model, but how to stop the slide and the extraction of those who might be coming, meeting that line. And just speaking with people from all over the country, public advocates here in Oakland, in California, they were just like simply brilliant. Some of the things that they're working on, because they're very progressive in their thinking about housing. But it's about all of us coming together because we simply cannot build our way out. And came back and there was a community community listening session that I can't really discuss, but it was basically the same thing. We're coming together, the things that we would want to see in the architectural design
For housing
for social
justice.
housing.
Our
This
housing
is what
now.
we would like. This is what we want to input into that because they're still building the model. But you have to be very realistic about what it is that you're doing, and you also have to figure out a way to fund it. In theory, much of it is, talk about social housing, the comparison to outside of North America, but North America's politics and private industry is not designed the same way. So we have to be very realistic in our approach to it. So I really appreciated attending the meeting, and I was very surprised when I heard about Section 8 and the low income housing tax credit, how they have no recourse in the event something happens with their housing outside of Section 8 or HUD. Now, interestingly enough, I was just at a meeting and I just found out HUD has changed their website, because they're trying to knock out all of these various things, but I'm not going to go into that. So, for fair housing, for, commodifying housing, which is what they're doing. And so we really have to stay on track. We really have to stay unified. We cannot be divisive. Even though we might not agree, we still have to work together as a class in order to do this, in order to really come up with really viable methodology about how to approach this and how to develop this collaboratively, not only individually.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's it. I was trying to keep it kind of short.
Thank you.
Uh,
Where are we on the agenda?
We need to take a break, and then we'll have more questions.
I have one comment, one line.
Okay, one line.
Yes. 40 years ago, I was pushed to pay $50 a month for rent for a 2-bedroom. And since then, the building has not changed. The environment there has not changed. And it costs $500 a month just to get any kind of access whatsoever.
Yep.
Capitalism gets
That's
us.
the second sentence.
Yeah. All right.
Break time.
Thank you. So don't forget to stretch and take care of yourself online. I'll leave the room view up. People can see each other, and I'm going to say thank you, Shakina. Thanks all.
You're welcome.
Our other guests sticking around, the other guest speakers, Amanda, or,
Yeah, I can stick around for that.
okay, we usually start. If you don't mind, Carol, I was gonna do a wrap up, but I'm not.
And I'm going to do that before the.
No, I'll do that, but
Okay.
But I think we have to, I think we should have questions before we lose people.
I want to say one further thing. One of the really interesting things that I find, and even listening to the California Land Trust, is the way that social housing, community land trusts are looking at the legislation that can be utilized to advance our causes. I just wanted to throw that in there.
And Shakina asked if there's any more questions for her. I guess people could come up to this if they want to ask something she could hear clearly during the break, but this is just this is a stretch break before the last bit.
But I think you could say something about the conferences and the trainings and the Zoom calls that the Land Trust Network offers. Because it is very specific to community land trusts, but it is also community land trust is a part of a larger web. Is there?
She says, okay.
Maybe she.
Actually, she was asking, are there more questions for her, and she'll say it, so. Yeah.
And maybe you'll come to some of our Gray Panther meetings, since you're just next door over the city line.
Who are you talking to, Arlene?
Shakina.
Yeah.
Arlene and Shakina.
Oh, yeah.
Arlene is a member of Gray Panther.
How long is the break? I just need to know, I need to step away for a moment.
5 minutes off, yeah.
Okay, I'll be back.
Let's go.
Oh, I'd like to ask anybody who did the RSVP online, checking with these, just so we have your info in the system. And generally, somebody left the bucket at home, but I'll send my hat around for any contribution.
I'm gonna make another comment that it's, in the newspaper a couple of weeks ago, they did an article, a very in-depth article about how repay your student loan, since the government is gonna take it whether you pay or not, right? Have you seen that? And the thing is, you know, all of those loans that were made to people who could not afford to pay have not changed in their relationship to the economy. They are not making a bunch, sometimes not. And it's so complicated, it's painful to read it. You know, I paid for my daughter's education borrowing my mother's inheritance. Wow. Yeah, so I didn't have that complication, and when I went to school, I paid off an $800 loan.
I know there's so many issues, but Norma, I think, why don't you bring that one to our social?
When are we gonna do that?
Carol will announce it.
And there's now dessert items like strawberries and some chocolate.
Yeah, so help yourself. And when we come back, what's on the agenda, Carol?
You're gonna do a wrap up.
I'm gonna do a real quick wrap up, but yeah, we're all still just sitting here.
Have reports.
Betsy, you caught me off guard, Betsy.
Pardon?
I said you caught me off guard.
I'm sorry. Well, we know where you live. But I don't want this to have a private conversation, but Arlene, when I saw your name on the list of attendees for this national leadership convening, and I had tried to go, I had heard about it the day it started. And I tried to I asked if I could go, and it was like, well, it's over tomorrow. So I couldn't make it. So then I saw your name on that list, and I'm like, I have to talk to you. And I just saw it yesterday. So I just like follow up with that, you know.
And it's funny because I didn't know anything about it, and I co-host with A States on occasion, and
Yeah.
reached out to me and asked me to come. So
You know, me talking about networks and federations, you had public housing authorities. And they're just people getting to know each other, but what public housing authority was there?
Who asked you to come?
ACE.
It was actually one of the speakers that were there. It was really an awesome event. We actually did yoga as well before we even by a senior. So that was like so cool because it was very mindful of our age. I appreciated that, but it was a speaker from Atlanta that actually broke down the history of public housing, the finance, and how public housing was actually designed for community, but it was sabotaged. And that's why they stopped building public housing. And, now they come up with this low income housing tax credit, which is, the rich people throwing money in and on a limited basis. And, but the low income housing tax credit doesn't take into, affordable housing doesn't take into consideration community at not at all.
Well, and Arlene, the low income tax credits, I put in the chat, CLTs are excluded from that. So, that doesn't benefit the model. or the community
Not at
well.
all. And so, and listen, for the lack of a better way to say it, it doesn't really benefit a lot of people because a lot of property, they're not building because they keep saying it's no money.
Yeah,
They
it
keep,
benefits the developers. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
developers who get to walk away after
Yeah.
30 or
But
55
they
years.
they put a little money in this impact fee, to what I'm talking about. But
I
it's
do.
but it's like the Oakland tenants, they took it off the agenda for the rent ordinance for Section 8. It was on the agenda and they took it off. It was section
Why?
number 8. And that's a very good question. I just got an email and I was like, because I was going to go down there tomorrow and do a public comment, right? So I told them, send me some information. So, I have talking points, right? But I always like to research before I go down there and run my mouth. And they took it off the agenda.
Probably because HUD has been gutted and they're trying to dismantle
Right, they
it like
don't know if there is
that.
gonna be Section 8.
Right,
They
exactly.
have no
exactly.
idea. They have, and when I was at Next City before earlier this morning, and the HUD website, a lot of information has been taken off of the
Yeah,
HUD website.
yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of
We could
information.
thank the billionaires and all the people who voted for him for that.
And that's with fair housing. That's with what is the CF, consumer fair. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Oh, the CFPB.
That
Yeah,
agency.
Consumer Financial Protection
So,
Bureau. Yeah, they've gutted everything.
yeah,
They've dismantled, they're dismantling the Department of Education, which is, my entire career. So I was
Yeah.
trying to get out of that career before that career was, gone, and it's basically gone. So now I really need to get out of it.
And it was really
Oh.
interesting. I was at a just legal event last week, and that was the bane of the conversation. The constant, what's being done to the Constitution and the lack of just total disregard.
Lack of oversight, lack of the courts actually holding checks and balances, doing their job,
Yeah,
arresting congressional people who are doing their job. Yeah, all that.
Yeah, all of the
Yeah.
public that are
All
not.
that.
And so it was just like really a very interesting conversation to hear these group of very conservative people speak very differently.
Oh yeah.
I was quite shocked to
They're
hear,
very
because there's a lot of people that's just going along to get along. You know what I'm saying? And
So I
there's
was at Lena Tam, she's my district supervisor for the Alameda County Board of Supervisors. And she was actually talking, they're so worried about no money coming in from the feds for like Section 8 or any of these things, that the county is actually, she made a couple of comments. They don't have the money, but they don't know how they're going to make this up, because otherwise, what all those people who have Section 8, they're all going to be homeless on the street. They know they have to do something. They're going to drag their heels on it, but they're very worried.
I've been going, I had a couple of meetings with some board of supervisors, and I actually attended the board of supervisors meeting because of this Measure W money that passed it. It finally came through the pipeline, but they are withholding it and they don't want to use it for anything affordable housing, any, homelessness, and they don't want to use any of that because of their anticipation of what's coming down the pipeline.
Yep. They don't want to build it. Well, it's not going to be enough to build housing, but she actually, and I was surprised about this, but Lena Tam was talking a lot about how it's going to go to manage support services and some,
Well,
you know,
that's what it was supposed to be for. It was
interim housing.
for homelessness and housing, you know, the organization, the staffing up, ramping up because they're doing a home together refresh, which I
Yeah.
actually sit on. I actually sit on that task force, which is interesting.
Oh,
And so I was on the original one, but the original one, you know, was in anticipation. They didn't really know the numbers. And so they gauge. And now they have numbers. And so now it's a refresh of the way that it's actually functioning. And
well, and the reason it took 5 years was because the was it the Taxpayers Association, the same people that got us
yeah,
Prop
that was
13,
the last group. Yeah, that was the
yeah,
last group that
did a lawsuit and it just got resolved.
yes.
So
And
that's literally, they
yeah,
screwed it up.
yeah. And so we waited 5 years
Yep.
for some you know, something that was passed in 2019. And
Yep.
here it is and still nothing. But you know, this is basically the way that it works. But one of the interesting things to me is the conversation about scarcity. Not so much that it isn't money, but there's a lot of wasted money. I just seen an article. I don't know if any of you read Cal Matters.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so did you read the article on May 20th about how they're dismantling Southern California's homeless system?
I haven't seen that.
No, I haven't seen that one.
It's really
Maybe
a
yesterday.
powerful piece about.
It looks like Betsy's talking, but we can't hear her. Betsy, we can't hear you in the room. We can't hear anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're just
It's okay,
chatting
Arlene.
away.
She said they're ready to resume, and it looks like she's saying something, but whoever's moderating this, we can't hear anything.
My apologies. I'm just yakking it up over here.
Oh, we all
No,
were.
we're yakking until we're told to stop. I have a feeling you put me, Arlene, you and Jenny in a room together and no one else is gonna get a word in edgewise. We're just gonna
Forget
talk.
about it. Nope. I just put that article, Why the Implosion of LA Homelessness Agency Reveals
Oh,
About
good.
Crisis.
I was trying to look it up.
Link. Yeah, here it is. If you want to click on the link. I think it was just yesterday it came out. Yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah.
You are very current.
Okay, because I thought there were some questions or things that you wanted in the room you wanted me to finish addressing.
We can't hear them. We can't hear you.
No, they're about to connect. They disconnected. He said they were doing parallel wrap-ups online and in person, which makes no sense to me because we're in one meeting. But they're trying to connect back.
Yeah.
Right?
If Betsy was next to the computer,
We're back on.
There we go.
Okay.
Hi.
We're back on and you're back on, so we can hear each
Okay.
other.
Yay,
And
thank
I'll
you.
move over to Carol and Betsy.
Can't hear Carol. There we
We
go.
have a person that's on telephone. Call in. Could you identify yourself, please? You don't know who you are. We're not Mrs. CLU, we know that.
Read him the number.
It's 510 644 1409.
1405.
Who are you?
We're just trying to get all the names in the room. But if they don't unmute, that's okay.
As long as they're not disrupting, what do you want to do, Carol?
They might not be, but I know when I call in on the phone, a lot of times I have no access to unmute. I can't use the chat feature. It's really difficult. I'm just basically listening.
Whoever you are.
You're seen.
Well, they're on mute, so you're safe.
Okay,
Yeah.
we need to.
Yeah.
So Betsy, I think you wanted me to say something more about the network.
I actually don't.
Well, you before the break, you said you did want to hear about.
I think we've heard that the Community Land Trust Network is working on legislation through its Community Action Committee, or the 501c4 that you're on.
For 501c4.
Oh,
right?
I was asking if anyone's interested in knowing about the conference. And I did want to share that Rains and I have been non-voting members of the, what was preceded the actual California Land Trust. So we've gone to a bunch of conferences and they're technical but interesting. And the next one will be in Fresno. So maybe you can say a few more words. Who would want to
Yeah.
go to the conference? It's not free.
Yeah. No, definitely not free. The next one, they do an annual conference. This will be the first one in the Central Valley, which it's about time because there's a lot of emerging CLTs coming out of the Central Valley. So it's
That'd be very
important to support that. It will be in like I think the third weekend or the third Thursday through Saturday in September, something like that. They are a opportunity for practitioners, providers, residents, and anyone committed to or interested in social housing and specifically community land trust affordable housing models to get education, information, and learn how to be a part of the movement, basically, is what the conference is for. And I know Ginny might actually have a lot more to offer to this around the state network, because I think you've been involved in it more directly than I have, for longer than I have.
Well, yeah, because I was trying to get the Eden Community Land Trust to join it. And here I am 5 years later. I'm just an individual member. But going to the meetings, it's interesting because you do get a real sense of what's going on all over the state, the kind of people that are doing things, what they're thinking about. It's not a very or they've never done it, it's my experience, as a very formal presentation. It's a lot of talk. That's what there
Oh,
is.
there's 3 days of formal presentations. What do you mean?
Well, they don't follow Brown's rules of, Robert's rules of order, and they don't follow the Brown Act. That's what I mean. It's not that formal. It's not as formal as Housing California is.
Oh, I
Yeah.
not
So
in those,
that's
but-
what I'm saying. It's a very good place to go and talk and meet people and get exposed, because you never know. I met a whole bunch of indigenous women from the Central Valley who were working on, and I still don't think they have an active land trust yet, but boy, they were really inspirational to me. So that's the kind of thing I mean. It's
Yeah, sorry, we're having a poor connection issue. It might be this end, but.
I didn't say anything that worth
And they were
hearing.
talking about something that I think is really important for us to know. So, which was County W, the measure W. So part of our rest of our agenda, I want to say first, thank you, Carol. That was Carol Morosevich, one of our, an incredible activist member, in her own world, right? No, here in Berkeley. So one, I wanted to get, so I'm sorry, a little flustered. We've lost our agenda, but we have, we're wrapping up this discussion, and I can see that it's leading to a lot of ideas and exchanges. And we do want to have a discussion of what Gray Panthers has been involved in and what we have been asked to endorse. We will have another member board meeting when?
The first Wednesday of next month.
Yeah, and so we can invite voting members to participate. But I did want to say, looking at this quick, I feel like if I were going to wrap this up, that what Arlene was talking about, that she was present where people from all over the country, from across public and mostly nonprofit and tenant organizing worlds, formal nonprofits and grassroots action groups from all over this California and other parts of the country. This is like this is what I believe, if we're going to change and transform housing into a human right, we're changing the economy. We don't have to change everything all at once, but we need a voter base, and we need a stable base of committed people who are not going to shift with the political winds, right? So this federation, and I know you didn't like the word, it's not a federation yet. But what I've seen,
Not like something. Movement, it's a movement.
it's a movement. And where that movement of movements can go, because we've been separated, the land trust movement, not related to tenants' rights or tenant.
Well, it is. It is related.
It is now, but please forgive me, I can tell you straight up, it is.
It's been a while,
It's
yeah.
evolving, it's evolving. And EBHO, I'm sorry to shout, but East Bay housing organizations, until a few, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, they were not celebrating tenants' rights per se.
Yeah,
They were
That's right.
delivering. And in terms of the homeless folks that we actually lost, Gordon, who was here from the homeless union as a advocate, you know, that's not in the movement yet. Although we know if we're gonna have a full, robust housing as a human right, social housing opportunities for as many people as possible, it's gonna include the homeless movements. That's my take. So let me stop. That's my opinion. Arlene, everyone here has their own, but I'm really happy and I hope everyone got something from the speakers. So we're gonna wrap up this part of the program. What's next on
we have
the
the
agenda?
report back from different groups.
Yes, we'd like to hear from Gray Panther members about activities, specific people who haven't spoken first. That's our preference. And in particular, you know, who has been on an action, a rally, and there's several of us who I know have done things in Gray Panther's garb or whatever over the last month. Carol.
I knew you were going to do that.
Are you calling on me?
No, me.
Oh,
I'm drawing a blank.
Well, I'll just say you, me, and Lee.
Oh, yeah, that was,
That was a few weeks.
yeah, you report on that.
Trying not to, because so just to let you know, we are a member of CARA, the California Alliance of Retired Americans. It's a coalition. We are a member, our chapter, of the Long-Term Supports and Services for All Coalition, which is a splendid group, and both have united to endorse, to protect Medicaid and hosted, along with Housing Now, the sponsor of the gathering that Arlene went to, to support AB 1157. You want to say what that is?
AB 1157 has several provisions, but one is that there's a rent cap on rent increases. There's 5% plus, is it 2%?
Some formula.
There's a formula, but it's 5% instead of 10%. So it's still, they can raise rents 5% a year plus as whatever the 2% or whatever the other.
So
part of the formula.
we went up to Sacramento, and then 3 of us, and one of us, me, went up a week or 2 later, and there were 800 people from Southern California that Housing Now organized. I see Arlene. Right, so ACE was organizing. This was like bringing tenants, renters to claim their rights in Sacramento. Now the bill is now been put aside by opponents, but it's put aside and it's a 2-year bill because there weren't enough there to build support for this bill.
Okay, that's good. It's not dead.
It's not dead.
There are several places bills go to die in Sacramento. One of them is the appropriations. When they get to the appropriations committee, you don't know what's going on the committee. Some of the bills come out and some don't. And 1st-year bills can be made into 2nd-year bills. It's 2-year max. What's the other one?
Well, it can be voted on and defeated.
There's
Usually
another,
it goes to a committee
where
and
they can
they
go
just
to and
don't.
die.
So we're not experts on that aspect, but our CARA and other coalitions that we're part of are always available if anyone's interested in going. And there are Zoom calls and we've been on the Zoom lobbying calls to talk to.
And Hannah was here earlier. They're voting on state cuts to
Medi-Cal.
Medi-Cal and IHSS, which is in-home care.
And to
And
community
she
land
will be
trust.
going up to Sacramento on the 29th, if anyone's interested in going.
So, the housing team, which has mostly been me, Carol, and Arlene, but of course, individuals here have their own work. And I see we've lost Maria Soul, but Carol, Carol Morosevich, do you want to share about the Berkeley City Council last night? And then we'll hear from anyone who wants to talk about
Well,
Oakland.
there's a lot more of our council, but the reason I want to hear their conversation and thoughts is the county Measure W, the housing bonds now, or the homelessness.
Yeah.
Is out of litigation, it's settled, but no one knows what's going on, so it seems like they were talking about, the city manager doesn't know what's happening with the county Measure W, nobody can identify
The
this.
supervisors have to decide
It's.
how
but-
it's used.
but when they-
How many millions of dollars?
Well.
Like
And
500,
for what, and for what purpose?
well,
And it feels like.
Arlene,
Or
or
like they were having that.
$250 million, I think, at this point.
say again,
I think it's like
70,
$650 million, but it's 390 million is supposed to become available.
we lost you.
We didn't hear you.
Did you say it was 70? And how do we know how much would come to Berkeley and how is it gonna be distributed?
Why don't we say that I will just say, we've been in rooms where Measure W is important as, it was supposed to be for homeless services, but it goes to the general fund with the county supervisors. There'll be negotiations and we can bring more information back at our.
So we don't know
board
whether
meeting.
it's housing or services.
It's a political, it needs to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
If we wish to, if members wish Gray Panthers to take a role, we have been asked to endorse the Measure W funds being used for homeless services and a homeless, I'm sorry, and community land trust, small site purchases for affordable housing. So there's a whole lot of people. The total amount, I believe, that's been collected while it was in litigation, I've heard 500 million. Okay, but it doesn't all come to, it has to be divvied up. And so we don't know how that will happen.
Yeah.
But we've been asked to go to the Board of Supervisors at some point and speak up for it being used, not to fill gaps in the county budget. This is, so.
Get that set up for a soggy.
A soggy what? Saudi airplane, yeah. So let's
Services and housing.
so
Separate.
as I'm saying, we're gonna bring it up at another board meeting, any member who would like to come. But it could also be an educational session in June. So if people are interested, but we need, Carol, we need to hear from other people.
Okay.
And I want to first ask, do any of our guests have any final remarks? And then you can go and if you wish, but we're gonna dicker a little bit here. No, do any of our guests, and that would be you. Amanda, why don't, if you want to say any wrap up or next steps you'd like.
Yeah, just want to say thank you so much for hosting this discussion. You know, I completely agree. We need different sectors and pieces of the movement to work together to make housing as a human right. You know, I think earlier I heard, you know, community land trusts, we all have different mandates. Us in particular, as Support Housing Community Land Alliance, particularly focus on people with serious mental illness, and that's why our financing structure is different. That's why we do have. We rent our facilities to licensed foreign care operators, but each of the
Own the
facilities,
lands, you own the land.
yeah, have different structures and things like that. So that's how we're distinct, but again, thank you so much for the opportunity to share.
And
Thank you for coming.
yes,
I wanted to also say thank you. I wanted to emphasize, I know we lost a lot of people, but I really wanted to emphasize that, I think Ginny said it earlier. Most community land trusts are leveraging a combination of some form of public and private financing. And what I want to emphasize is that because the CLT model, and it doesn't matter whether it's, like a social housing model, like a supportive housing CLA has, or, Oakland CLT, the one thing they have in common is the 99-year ground lease, right? If they got nothing else in common, they got that. The ownership of the land stays with the organization. And because it is a 99-year renewable ground lease that always stays with the organization, that leveraging, particularly of public financing, always stays with the land. It's not like a tax credit or some of the other models where it walks away with the owner, or it walks away at 35 or 50 or 55 years or whatever it is. It always stays with the land, keeping it permanently affordable. So I just really wanted to say thank you to you all and emphasize that.
and I want to thank Ginny Madsen for coming. She's somebody, we're really trying to wrap this up. Why don't you, would you be willing to take a question later if
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I'll share. Do you want to share your text number or phone number?
Can I share my email? Yeah, here, I'll put it in the chat so you can widely distribute it.
Well, only as you wish. Okay. And I'm sorry, Dave, we are formally, Carol, adjourning. And that's why we're trying to get to the end of the meeting, but you'll be able to
people
talk
can email
later.
me. I say email because it's easiest for me to get back to people when I can.
Could you put that in chat then?
Yes, I just did.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank
Bye.
you.
All right,
Now,
bye y'all.
I wanted to just say thank you. Lavender, did you have any last remarks? Current upcoming events with EBHO you'd like us to know about?
Then great event. We do have some events coming up. We still have a few more events for the rest of the month. Specifically, let me pull them up really quick.
If you go to ebho.org, there's a calendar
Yes.
to look at for affordable housing month.
Yes, specifically we have an event with Green Social Housing event happening next Wednesday, so I recommend checking that one out. And then let me send the link in the chat for all of if you want to check out all of our housing month events for the rest of the May. But yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
And Miss Pauline Blackwell, I see you're from the Alameda County Housing and
Community Development. Hi, everyone.
I know I've brought you out of, I've raised you up because you are with the public sector. And I'm curious to know, maybe Arlene knows you, but I wonder if you might, thank you for coming. And is there something, stay in touch, and are you involved in any of the conversations about housing as a human right? That's kind of not the public sector, but we need you.
Yes, no, the county and my department in particular, I'm on the rental development and finance team. So, and housing as a human right is the county's model that we've adopted for our department. So we're right there with you.
Wow.
We support the community land trust folks. We're working with emerging developers at the moment. In terms of the climate and where funding is, we share in kind of what is happening and how it impacts our communities. So, and I've joined today to hear, what other partners and allies are doing to support our communities right now. So we stand with you, and I'm here to listen in and definitely will share back with my team some of the work that everyone is doing, how everyone is progressing. We actually just helped funded one of Teslam's other projects as an emerging developer. So
Oh, great.
we're excited about how the community is lifting and looking for innovative ways on how do we solve our housing crisis right now. We understand it takes more than a village and all of us, and we need to find ways at the moment to really support the communities that are all here. So thank you for having me and having me listen in.
Thank you.
And happy to
Uh,
be a resource if folks want to connect in any way.
Arlene has a
Yeah,
quick question, and then we're gonna.
Anybody that has anyone that they know on living in affordable housing, what is it called, Carol? Resident United Network and RCOP meetings on EBHO. They really need to join up with them because you know we got to really come together in this fight that we're in, because number 47 is not messing around with us. He is just extracting and decommodifying. He is just wreckage is going on, and we really need to come together. So please put the word out to anybody in affordable housing, anybody in housing choice vouchers, anybody that is living in any kind of developments as a tenant, to reach out to EBHO and reach out to Damien, who runs the RCOP meetings and the Resident United, because we need to get tenants on board. And the
Yeah.
other thing is, Amanda, Supportive Housing Community Land Alliance. I love that you're talking about transition age youth. I love the fact that you're talking about the reentry population, which they have a reentry initiative housing program that they just started here in Oakland. And I look forward to seeing your work. Thank you.
Thanks, Arlene. Is there any, so about the Measure W, Pauline or Arlene or whoever was speaking, do you want to say a few sentences to how will the money be divvied up? What's the process for how it will be used? Do
What are you
know
talking
that?
about, Measure W?
Measure W. What did I, County Measure W.
The city of Berkeley.
That's a good question.
Okay, Pauline, I don't want to out you
Yes.
again. You might know
No
more.
worries. I wish I had a better update, but you know, the money was intended for homelessness and housing. And so the original intent is still at play, and we're hoping that is what the board will direct it to be. Within the county, there are folks hoping to carve it out for specific activities, but all of it towards housing, homelessness, and so forth. So I don't have a current update. It's still working through the Board of County Supervisors on when that money will be available. But I am happy to kind of shoot an email to this group when we all find out. Actually, you know, it has to go through the Board of Supervisors still for it can be released and how it's used in its final form.
Well, it is, and that piggyback onto that, you know, housing and homelessness, who's Jonathan Russell. When you look at his the organization for Alameda County, how they trying to shore up staffing, the various areas that need to be expanded that they did not know 5 years ago, and they're just finding out more, especially with what's going on. The moratoriums have ended for evictions, etc. ARPA is over, and all of these things are kind of converging into this perfect storm. And so we need additional resources for these things. Not, and you know, like what does EBHO say? Protection, preservation, and production. And so looking at new models, new ways that we could begin to do things. And that's part of what this money should be used for. And that's what it was assigned to do.
That's right. So thank you. Hey, congratulations on your new mayor. I heard Barbara Lee was inaugurated today, sworn in. 2 days. Oh, Brains, I count on you to keep me up to date. Do we have any other Oakland reports?
I'm going to the community inauguration.
All right.
Yeah.
When is that? For our what?
June the 8th. I'll shoot you.
Right. Okay. June the 8th. And I did want to share, we won't go into big detail, but 5 of us, 5 members are participating in different ways in a kind of a working group to get, and the city council just asked its staff, it had to pass make a motion and pass a recommendation requesting staff to look for new sites or other sites or any sites for safe parking and tiny home village or RV village, whatever. But we're collaborating with Dorothy Dayhouse and Helen, myself, Maria, who else was there? Well, Carol's always involved one way or another, and Carol Rosovich. So it's about 23 people in this working group. And it's to create the most possible humane community for safe parking rather than the ethos of control of the residents. So the details are to be worked out, of course, and we have no funding and no site, but we have made a request and met with 2 city staff people who are high up enough. And we're, it was Peter Radu and David White. And our request, well, let me just ask this. We didn't bring it back to the board, you know, or to members, so I'm bringing it now. The request is for either a public street, like 2nd Street, a couple of blocks, 1 or 2 blocks of a public street for half the street to be this managed safe parking or tiny house village. And the best model is the Grayson Street model at Horizons, which served over 150 people, but was shut down when the lease ended and has not been reopened. So it's an effort to repeat a model that has worked, and or at least what has been the best of all the other of the alternatives, at least from the point of view of what people who are unhoused and live there have to say. It is surprisingly could use some more of that, or ways of, if there's a group. Moni is very visible, but she's not necessarily representing anyone but her church. And thank you for reminding me.
Not me.
Yeah, so I'd like to take us back to the board and ask for an endorsement. This is very similar to all of our previous work with the Landless Peoples Alliance. Did you want to announce, we're also an ally of Wood Street Commons and the Homeless Action Working Group.
Wood
in
Street Commons
Oakland.
has a meeting coming up.
Every Saturday or every Thursday,
Oh, I don't know about that.
but when's the meeting?
I don't have it. in front of me.
So there's too many ways to be active, but these 2 efforts are the best I've ever seen of like humane organizing that includes the voices and accountability to, you know, unhoused leaders in Berkeley and in Oakland for sure. And these are a different way of approaching homelessness. You could say it's kind of like the housing cooperative and community land trust model, which is that the residents or the people who have a particular need that the public sector or all of us could step up to help with, that they have a voice. It's not administered top down from professional caregivers who don't really know how to connect in many cases. So I'm editorializing. I think that's about it. And so we have, I know Carol wants to say something. Hopefully it's more general as we close out, and Dave.
Well, just 2 things.
And if you had another question.
The first is just, the Dorothy Day is independent.
We're working with Dorothy Day. They are part of they're part of the committee. Yeah.
So there may be 2 independent routes. One
Yes.
from the tiny house
We're-
village, and Dorothy Day is working,
Yes.
has been working for a long time to get another Horizon set up. The other thing I want to do is, so that nobody is too optimistic. I think it was after you left the meeting,
every council member had to address what their top priorities are in the city.
For the
Given that-
budget cuts.
Given that there's a big general fund budget deficit, this doesn't even count the Trump administration cuts. Measure P isn't available, is overextended. Measure U1, there's some money, but, and given all of that, and each of the priorities, none of them, after they already authorized this, identified homelessness at all, identified the alternative housing sites. So when there was public, but the mayor, Dina, said she threw out her priorities were housing, homelessness, public safety, and infrastructure, which is really broad. Everybody else just identified specific subjects, specific things that looked at, and nobody said homeless housing. I just want to say
That's
that.
fine.
Every single person they went around. And then after we had public comment, and one of the things I said, well, you just authorized this for them to look for sites, and where's the money gonna come from? And so then the mayor said Measure W, but I believe she was talking about the city Measure W. That's what we'll look.
So why don't we follow up
So
on
what-
this
what I-
topic?
So the
'Cause
last
clearly
sentence,
there's a lot of
last sentence with that
dangling
is
and
the city Measure W doesn't start being collected till January of 2027. So
So-
we'll be talking 2 years.
I will
That's all I
also,
wanna say.
I will also say that this task force is not asking that it only be funded by the city,
Right.
or that it is saying, give us a site and we will make it work. And if any, those are the players in this group and why we're participating. It's not demanding something that doesn't exist, but hey, if anyone's interested, talk to us afterwards. And I think we just gotta wrap up. Thank you for your
I have
patience.
one.
And Carol will take us.
Anyone between 65 and 80 that's right-handed, that's interested, there's a study at UC Berkeley. It's for an hour to an hour and a half, and it pays $20 an hour, and you work with a robotic arm.
Ooh,
So
fun.
let me know if you're interested, that would be the email address.
Sounds interesting.
They continue to discriminate against lefties, if not lefties.
You have to have good vision.
Well, probably.
Robert, do you want to show the buttons?
It was.
Can you show?
Because I had to write.
No, Norma, you've had ample, no, wait till we're adjourned. I agree with all this program.
Well,
You put me as though I didn't agree with something and you were wrong. I agree. This all is the basis of doing what I'm saying needs to be done.
I'm
And
glad.
what people are demanding
I'm
and
glad.
working for.
In your head.
I'm glad.
Yep.
All right. That's very normal.
So Rob, what's the button? What does it say,
Right.
people online?
Fight, truth, be Great Panthers, fight, truth, decay.
That's brilliant.
And how much are you asking as a donation?
Well, I'm gonna say $2 a pop, you see.
Oh, it just went up.
And where,
Oh, we can go, oh, God, this guy.
and where can we next
Thank you,
time,
Willie.
Great Panthers tabling at a community event?
I don't know, Randy's word.
That
So
would
what are you soliciting?
Juneteenth,
Oh, there you go.
June 15th.
Here, throw me the button.
I was gonna get that, but I didn't see that because I have my answer to it.
There's,
Pay for this.
just put it in the window. You have to see it. No one.
Yeah,
Thank
that's-
you.
yeah.
So
Thank you all.
I will tell you later about what's going on
Thank you, man.
with the Great Panthers National, but it.
More
relates
fun to
housing.
follow.
So I was-
Thanks for being all a part of it.